Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Slightly unusual video for me today. I am not in DCS World, as you can probably tell. I am in Rio de Janeiro in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Now, I do happen to be in my favorite helicopter, which is, in this particular case, the MD-500. But of course, in DCS World, as a lot of you may know, the OH-6 is my favorite helicopter, which is the closest thing to this MD-500. In fact, this exact module, which is a payware add-on for Microsoft Flight Simulator by Toag's Hangar, does also have the OH-6 version, pretty much the exact same one that we have in DCS. Now, before we go any further, or rather before we actually get carried away talking about anything and you guys getting a little bit bored about me sitting on the ground doing nothing, let's take off and then I'll continue with why I'm doing this video. Using my force feedback joystick, of course, just feeling what the skids are doing, how the helicopter is moving, and as you can see, a little bit of a wind from the left, which is why we're banking into the left, getting into a little bit of a hover, and let's move out. So, why am I doing this video? Well, this is because I have only just recently started flying Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, and I wanted to give you my thoughts about it, because after many years of having not flown in Microsoft Flight Simulator, I am finally in it, and I'm enjoying it. And the reason I haven't actually flown it over since Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 came out, actually, I had it, but every time I tried it, I hated it because of how poorly it was optimized, and I thought it just did not run smoothly at all. I couldn't get it to run smoothly with my system back then. I had a 3090 and my old processor as well, and now I've just upgraded my computer last month, and I've got the 5090 now, of course, and I've got a beast of a computer. And obviously you might be saying, well, yeah, well, surely if you have a beast of a computer, you'd expect it to run super well, right? Well, I was very skeptical of how poorly it ran before. I was very skeptical because, for me, the smooth picture is what it's all about. I need a smooth... Look at this terrain, by the way. I mean, the Eagle Dynamics, if you're watching, can we please get some more realistic terrain engine in DCS World? Like, can we please get something like this? I mean, okay, whatever about the buildings and whatnot, but can we just get some not photogrammetry, but can we get some three-dimensional forests where you can have more than 10 trees in a frame that doesn't break your computer? I mean, that would just be phenomenal. I mean, just look at this. I mean, this is just incredible. Microsoft Flight Simulator, honestly, it's just been what an amazing experience. I've been absolutely loving it, and I've been a little bit addicted to it over the last sort of week since I've downloaded it and realized I can actually make it run very smoothly. It's not something I could have done before, and I'm so pleasantly surprised about how beautiful is this. Now, before I get carried away about how beautiful it is, there are some downsides. I've got some thoughts, and I'm sure a lot of you might know this already, but I thought I'll give them to you anyway. I think Microsoft Flight Simulator is brilliant the way it is here for just sightseeing, flying around, you know, having a look at the cities, the towns, and although, yes, the photogrammetry has its limitations because once you get low level, it breaks down, looks horrible. But if you're flying at 200, 300 feet, it's phenomenal. And if you're flying low level over the rainforests and the trees and the tree canopy, I mean, it's just a thing of beauty, right? And the weather engine, of course, compared to DCS, you have winds that change, you have turbulence, you have actual weather, unlike in DCS. Although the clouds in DCS look very nice, there's absolutely no real weather simulation there whatsoever. I mean, the wind is identical no matter where you go. I mean, you can complain about it all day long, but Microsoft Flight Simulator does have an Achilles heel, and that happens to be the flight dynamics, right? So when you're cruising along at 20% of the aircraft's capability, and I don't mean in terms of speed, but mostly just in terms of control input, AOA, and you know, you're not on the limit, you're just flying around like this. I mean, not only does it look absolutely beautiful, look at all those rocks, it's just phenomenal. So not only does it look, you know, beautiful, but it actually feels, broadly speaking, pretty realistic, I think. the problem starts to arise once you start pushing aircraft to the limit. Certainly when it comes to helicopters or airplanes, the sort of flying that I love doing in real life, which is high performance, aerobatic. You know, I have the Kristen Eagle, of course, that I fly in real life that some of you might know as well. And the problem is that once you start pushing aircraft to the limits, once you start pushing the AOA, anything to do with gyroscopic maneuvers, P factor, when you're trying to do a snap roll in an airplane, the flight dynamics just completely break down in Flight Simulator. At least with all the stock aircraft I've tried. So if anybody has any suggestions for a realistic aerobatic or military aircraft for that matter, I mean, if it's a fighter jet, whatever it is, because the current F-18, the Super Hornet in Microsoft Flight Simulator here is absolutely appalling. I mean, it's arcade. Now, it's still fun to fly, you know, you can fly fast, whatever. I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad experience, but it's not a realistic experience, you know, that's for sure. So, if anybody has any suggestions, if there's any aircraft, I don't care if it's a little decathlon, it could be a Tiger Moth, but anything that kind of has, broadly speaking, realistic flight dynamics, when it being pushed to the limit, please let me know in the comments below. I would absolutely love to know if there is actually such a thing in Microsoft Flight Simulator, because I can't find it, and in my experience of, at least in years past, having tried aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator, it's always been a fail. Now, regarding this helicopter, I am going to have a separate video come out about the Toax Hangar OH6 and MD500 because I'm actually very pleasantly surprised about it. I couldn't stand any of the helicopters which came and shipped with my standard version of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. They all sucked. When it comes to hovering them, it just felt like they were on rails. They felt so unrealistic. It was awful. So I asked ChatGPT what helicopter I can download from Microsoft Flight Simulator that would have flight dynamics, at least broadly speaking, similar to the flight dynamics that we have in the helicopters in DCS World. And as a lot of you might know, the OH6, the free mod, the OH6 in DCS World happens to be my favorite helicopter. It happens to be, I think, one of the best simulations of all time when it comes to helicopter physics of any simulator. And I was pleasantly surprised when ChatGPT told me that the OH6 MD500 by Toax Hangar in Microsoft Flight Simulator is one of the best options to go for. And I have to say, I'm very pleasantly surprised. Now, it's not as good as I would have liked in terms of flight dynamics. Although I have a force feedback stick and I can sort of simulate some of the things that happen to helicopters like ETL, translational lift and stuff, via the software with my stick shaking and stuff, even though, as you might see, the helicopter itself doesn't have the vibrations that you might expect passing through the ETL at, you know, whatever it is, 20 knots. I can still kind of simulate it in many ways, and it still, you know, it still feels very believable. But when it comes to hovering, I was kind of pleasantly surprised, because every other helicopter in Microsoft Flight Simulator that I've tried, how cool is this? Look at this beach. I mean, this is just amazing. Anyway, every other helicopter felt like it was on rails, just didn't feel anything like what I would expect a sort of twitchy, you know, kind of unstable helicopter experience that you'd imagine you should have, right? And I'm very pleasantly surprised about this helicopter. It's not as good as the DCS renditions, but it's kind of like having a very believable helicopter with maybe a 20% stability filter on top. That, by the way, I'm exploring this area for the first time here as well as I'm talking and doing this one take. And it's just, I mean, I'm just amazed about the beauty of this. Not all places Microsoft Flight Simulator look as good as this, but this in particular is just phenomenal. But as I was saying, the OH6, or the MD500 here in MSFS, it's kind of like having a bit of a stability augmentation filter added to the helicopter on top of, so it feels potentially slightly too stable, but it still feels helicopter-esque, if that makes sense. Which is actually, I think, a lot of praise for a Microsoft Flight Simulator product. I actually do feel like it gives you that helicopter feeling. It just doesn't give you the constant sort of, I don't know what way to describe it, what I would imagine sort of twitchiness that you should get, and a little bit less stability, I suppose, when it comes to hovering. And it doesn't have some of the other sort of helicopter effects that you'd imagine with, you know, something like an abrupt pitch up when you're trying to do a sort of a bit of a high G maneuver. You know, speed bleeds off, and you get various interesting effects that obviously affect helicopters with the main rotor and the tail rotor. But overall, I gotta tell you, it does feel like a helicopter, and I'll make a separate video about it, and I'm actually very, very impressed with it. It's actually very fun to fly, and I've actually kind of been loving flying it, to be honest. I think it's been great, and so I'm very glad I've stumbled across it. It would be nice to try any kind of more stuff that just maybe a bit more believable when it comes to flight dynamics, whether it's aircraft or helicopters. So if any of you have an idea, please comment down below. We'll try and make an approach here back onto this helipad, try and bleed the speed off. And this is a lot more tricky in the OH6 in DCS than it is here. Here, it's a lot easier to just kind of bleed the speed off, and although it does have a vortex ring state, I think. In fact, it definitely does, and that's pretty cool. So when you fall through your own vortex ring, if you're descending a little bit too quickly, and that's pretty cool. So it definitely, like I say, definitely does feel still very much like a helicopter. And I've just been loving flying it, just exploring, looking around. Of course, I've got all the augmentation systems turned off. Here we go. Just concentrate here, see if we can get a nice little touchdown. Still very, very enjoyable, very rewarding to actually... Actually, there is one aspect I really love about this helicopter. The way it settles on the skids and the friction physics, I actually feel are better than DCS. Like, for example, here now, when it touches down at some point... Whoa, this is bad. Come on, concentrate. Whoa, 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 where are you going? Concentrate. Here we go. Come on. Settle. Settle. There we go. Yeah, once it actually settles on a skid or skids, I feel like it has more controllability. Like, for example, if I start lifting the collective a little bit here, you see I can feel how it's sort of moving around on the skids, like the compression of each skid. I can move it around, and you can feel which way it's going to start leaning. It actually gives you a much better feel of how I would imagine, and I'm not a real helicopter pilot, by the way, but at least the way I'd imagine a real helicopter should feel. And I think that in that sense, it's actually better. And of course, a lot of you might know that in DCS world, that you can actually skid a helicopter on the ground just by, you know, using the anti-torque pedals, because the friction is so poor in DCS world. So that's one aspect where actually Microsoft Flight Simulator, I think, is maybe a little bit more realistic. But if you disagree with me, comment down below. Now, I have not tried this in VR yet, and I know some of you might be asking that, because I have recently done a video with the Pimax Crystal Super, and I definitely will. But the thing is, like I said before, I'm not really a VR guy as such, because VR is amazing for dogfighting, VR is amazing for some oddball things, but the reality is you're gonna have to drop a lot of this beautiful scenery and reduce the fidelity of the atmosphere and the visual quality just to make it run smoothly in VR. And although I am going to be pretty keen on trying it out, it's not my kind of thing in this particular simulator. However, if you are interested in a VR headset, Pimax is currently running some deals. I'll leave the links in the description below. You can have a bunch of money off. They're even giving a free F-18 for DCS if you purchase the Crystal Super. And if you use Command T, you can get some discounts there as well. So feel free to check out my previous video about the review of the Pimax Crystal Super. And like I say, I'm not trying to sell it to everyone, because I'm not trying to say it's the next best thing after sliced bread. It isn't. For some things, it's amazing, dogfighting, various oddball things for me. And some people really love the feeling of being in VR and are happy to sacrifice the visual fidelity. I am just not one of those people most of the time, unless I'm dogfighting, in which case, yeah, VR is just an absolutely must-have. But if you are interested in VR, then please check out the links in the description. So if any of you have any good suggestions about what aircraft have good flight dynamics in MSFS or helicopters, please make sure to comment down below, and hopefully I shall catch you in the next video. Adios.